Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. If we rewind to the morning of September 11, 2001, it really began like any other day. Just picture it, a perfect, clear blue sky stretching over the Manhattan skyline, with a warm golden sunrise reflecting off the towering glass of the World Trade Center.
Millions of Americans were doing what they always do, grabbing their morning coffees, catching yellow taxis, and walking the bustling streets below. They were starting their day completely unaware that within just a few short hours, the world would witness one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in modern history. It was an event that would absolutely and permanently rewrite global politics, security, and international relations.
Part 1. The World Before 9/11.
You see, the era was defined by a pretty stark contrast. On one hand, the United States in the 1990s stood essentially unchallenged as the world's leading peaceful superpower. But across the globe, a very dangerous threat was quietly rising. Extremist groups, particularly Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, were formulating some truly deadly ambitions. They had actually already targeted American interests, like the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center and attacks on U.S. embassies in East Africa. But they were actively seeking to carry out even larger-scale attacks against the U.S.
It's still chilling to think about the preparation involved. Over a span of months, 19 hijackers secretly entered the United States. Several of them even received flight training at civilian flight schools right here in the U.S. Their unimaginable plan: to hijack commercial passenger airliners and literally use them as weapons. When those 19 men boarded those 4 planes that morning, absolutely no one else on board had any idea what was about to unfold.
Part 2. The Coordinated Attacks.
The timeline of how this escalated is just terrifyingly rapid. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 struck the North Tower. Now, initially, many people looking up at the sky believed they were witnessing a horrific freak accident. But 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 hit the South Tower. That second impact, it made it undeniable. This was a coordinated terrorist attack. The horror continued at 9:37 a.m., with Flight 77 crashing into the Pentagon. Meanwhile, passengers aboard United Airlines Flight 93 actually learned about these earlier attacks through phone calls. Realizing their plane was also being used as a weapon, they heroically fought back against the hijackers. Flight 93 ultimately crashed into a peaceful field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the actions of those passengers are widely remembered for preventing even further destruction.
Part 3. The Towers Fall.
The sheer speed and scale of what happened next in Lower Manhattan was truly unimaginable. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower fell. And then, just 29 minutes later, the North Tower collapsed. Dense smoke rose over the skyline, and drifting dust completely swallowed the streets, transforming this bustling, vibrant city into a scene of absolute devastation. But amidst all that choking smoke and drifting dust, we saw a profoundly moving human response. Firefighters, police officers, emergency medical personnel, and everyday civilians bravely ran directly toward the danger. They risked their own lives to rescue others. The streets were just filled with emergency vehicles racing through the dust, and people stepping up, helping one another in the darkest of hours, even while thousands of families were left desperately searching for their loved ones.
Part 4. A Changed World.
The human cost was simply staggering. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives on that single day. And it's so important to remember that this wasn't just an American tragedy. Those victims represented more than 90 different countries. It was a massive global loss.
The events of that morning shocked the entire globe into immediate action, which resulted in 3 major historical shifts. First, we saw an incredible outpouring of worldwide solidarity with the United States as governments everywhere stepped up. Second, the U.S. launched military operations in Afghanistan against Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, which officially kicked off what became known as the War on Terror. And third, we saw dramatic, permanent changes to global airport security procedures, things we still experience every time we fly today.
Part 5. The Hunt for bin Laden. For almost 10 years, the mastermind behind the attacks, Osama bin Laden, remained one of the world's most wanted fugitives. That relentless search finally culminated on May 2, 2011, when U.S. Special Operations Forces successfully launched Operation Neptune Spear in Abbottabad, Pakistan. During that operation, bin Laden was killed. For many Americans, this marked the end of a very long, painful search, though the broader fight against terrorism certainly continued on.
Now, more than 2 decades later, 9/11 remains this absolute defining moment in history. It fundamentally reshaped international security, intelligence cooperation, foreign policy, and air travel for decades to come. It stands as a stark, permanent reminder of the widespread, devastating impact of global terrorism.
So as we wrap up this explainer, we're left with a truly vital question. When we look at the peaceful countryside memorials, American flags flying at half-staff, or the tribute in light illuminating the New York skyline at night, how do we continually honor the memory of those victims and brave responders, while reinforcing the international cooperation that is absolutely necessary to prevent a day like this from ever happening again? It's a powerful question of remembrance and action that stays with us today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.